Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to today's episode of the Daily Sip. Apologies for a bit late at starting, but I had a couple of meetings that overran this morning. So anyway, better late than never. We're here, and we've got a really. It's a funny one when we talk about toilets and disability, because obviously toilet humour and generally toilets not something you think you'd be chatting about very much. But from my experience, wherever I've travelled in the world, there's always amazing accessible toilets and people want to celebrate these cool and quirky loos, but obviously it's for a long time as a wheelchair user there aren't enough accessible loos, and so while there's the weird and wonderful loos, there's also a distinct lack of accessible toilets. So we're going to be getting stuck in and talk about the topic of toilets today with Mobiloo and James and Kerry. So thanks both for joining me.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I think we're gonna go to James first to sort of hear about what Mobiloo is, how it came about, and then we're just gonna have a good chat around all the topic of toilets today.
Thanks, Martin. Good to be here today. The Mobiloo, I mean, I could sum it up in a single sentence, but I kind of feel maybe I should give a tiny bit of background as well, because
Yeah.
very interesting story, I think. I was working at Gloucestershire County Council around the time of the Aiming High for Disabled Children project, sort of 2008, 2010, I think that was. And I was lucky to be working with a super team of people, including a guy called Philip Deutsch, who's a kind of fairly well-known writer and in the area of inclusion. And we were putting into place some amazing initiatives, one of which was called the Of Course We Can program, and that was a program of activities at weekends and in school holidays that enabled disabled young people and their non-disabled peers to take part in the kinds of things that were kind of pushing the boundaries a little bit. So we had, guys with quite severe learning disabilities driving quad bikes on their own completely safely. We had kids with very complex physical conditions kind of strapped into sort of army trucks or 4x4s or whatever we could find that was appropriate for them to kind of
sounds like heaven.
get and it was very successful. We did all kinds of other stuff, and this program, Of Course We Can, is still ongoing. We do kind of food related stuff. We do sort of bushcraft, artsy, crafty, kind of construction-y stuff, creative arts, you name it. Anything that any non-disabled young person would be interested in doing, we make that possible through the Of Course We Can program, and like I said, it's still going. So what we discovered was there was a group of young people who struggled to attend some of the activities we ran because of a lack of appropriate toilets. And we thought, well, instead of being constrained to running the activity where there happens to be the right toileting facility, why not take the toilet to the activity? Because that gives us a great deal more flexibility. So we did that. We designed and built the first Mobiloo, and involved with the project were a couple of well-known names. I think National Star in Cheltenham and St Rose's School in Stroud, and we had others involved in the project as well. I have to say that at that time I was kind of involved in the Paralympics, so my kind of involvement with Mobiloo was pretty light touch. But I guess the one thing that I did contribute was to keep encouraging the project, because I kept coming back from travels, competition, training abroad, and going in and kind of looking at the development, and could see everybody pulling their hair out, going, "Oh, this is horrible! This is too hard! We don't know how to finish this. We don't know if anybody's going to use it." And I said, "Guys, we have to do it. We have to do it. It's going to be a massive world changer. Keep going, keep going." And then I would disappear again. So in 2016, I thought I better put my money where my mouth is. So I retired from sport and said that I can give my full attention to this. Previously, it was really just volunteer led. So 2016 was really the first year we operated it, so essentially it's a custom built van with all the kind of kit you'd find in a changing places toilet. So it's a ceiling hoist, it's an adult size changing bed, lots of space, accessible wash basin, a shower, an accessible toilet, and a tail lift critically to lift somebody in who uses a wheelchair. and it's taken off absolutely massively. And I think maybe Kerry's even going to be able to show us what a Mobiloo looks like today at some point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's really good context of where Kerry's currently sat, right? Tell us more.
Yeah. So I'm inside a Mobiloo. I'm very fortunate as one of the drivers to because I live so far away from our base that I have a Mobiloo to myself. All our Mobiloos are named after different people who've had a connection with Mobiloo, or their families have, and mine's named after a young lady called Josephine. So my Mobiloo is called Mobiloo Josie, and it lives on my drive. Or at least it has done for the last 3.5 months. Normally, it's out and about very busily in what's loosely determined as the north of England. I've actually done events and covered events everywhere from Chelsea in the south up to Glasgow and Edinburgh and Stirling in the north. But loosely, I'm covering the north of England. So it takes me to many places normally. This morning was the first time I've set up the Mobiloo since I think the end of February, when I was last at a match at Burnley Football Club. Yeah, so what I'll try and do, I don't know how successful this will be, but I'll stand up with my laptop and do a sort of 360 of the van that I'm in. All our vehicles are slightly different. We've got a number of Ford Luton vehicles, of which this is one, but the layout of each one has been slightly changed each time, working on the basis of our experience and talking to our clients and our customers. So the design of all our vans is always adapting to what we think is going to be eventually the perfect Mobiloo. So behind me are the double doors. You can see on mine, I've got a number of photographs, because I know that when I go places, people often ask me, where have you gone and where have you been? And they like to talk about the places that they can get to. So these double doors, I won't open at the moment because it's throwing it down with rain here. Open up to the back and onto a lift, which I'll show you later on. And then we've got a toilet, and there's a handrail that folds down on both sides of the toilet to enable somebody to transfer from either side of a wheelchair on either side. We've got the changing bed, which is a full adult size changing bed.
Yeah.
One of the things that we're very conscious of is that a lot of disabled toilets double up as children's changing rooms or baby changing rooms. These changing beds are 6'6" long on wheels, and will move anywhere in the unit. Behind me, I can't stand out of the way. We've got a sink, which is at a wheelchair height for somebody to do wheel underneath, with hot and cold running water. And in the corner opposite the sink, in mine, if I stand out of the way, you can see the ceiling track hoist, which is from a H system. That goes the full length of the vehicle, so right from the doors, right to the back of the Mobiloo. So somebody can be transferred at any place from their wheelchair onto the toilet, onto the bed, whatever is most convenient for the user and their carers. And then behind, you might not be able to see that, but right behind the hoist is a shower. And that's been absolutely revolutionary for some of the users of this particular Mobiloo. So I was looking at a video clip just last week, actually, that I was sharing with somebody from a festival that I attended in Macclesfield nearly 2 years ago. And there were two in particular people who I spoke to at that festival. Both came from completely different angles. It was really interesting. The first was a guy called Alan, who I guess was in his late 60s, perhaps. He just retired. He had a disability. He was able to get out of his scooter, but he mainly went around in his scooter. And he was camping. Well, he was in a little camper van with his wife, who was also his carer. And it's the first time they'd been to a festival. And his story was quite heart-wrenching. He was in very poor health. And he shared with me that his doctor had told him not long before, whatever's on your bucket list, get going on it and start ticking things off. And he said, I've always wanted to go to a live music festival. So this was the first time he'd ever done so, on the basis that accessibility was a problem. And he camped in his camper van at the accessible campsite and was expecting only to be able to see Portaloos on the site. He didn't know about Mobiloo. He came to see me when he saw the vehicle, and I showed him inside it one evening because he wanted to come and see what it was before he came to use it the following day. And that following day, he came on his own. He mounted the wheelchair lift outside on his little portable scooter. I lifted him up, and he came in and independently had a shower and washed and so on. And I'll never forget when he came back out on the ramp at the end of that sometime later, and opened the doors with his towel around his neck, bare-chested. And he said that he looked as if he was the Pope at Vatican City addressing the crowds, sort of 4 foot up on the lift. He said, I have never in my life experienced anything like that. I've never been able to go to a festival where I'd be able to get washed and changed and do so independently with having the facilities that I need. And that turned me to tears. It was absolutely, moving. And I got him to do a little video clip for us at that occasion. And at the same event, there was another chap whose initial approach was exactly polar opposite. He was a Glaswegian, and you could tell that by his language and his accent. And he'd arrived on the campsite a little bit later than others and was rather unimpressed to find it was quite busy. And he wanted a particular space right next to where my van was. And he was most put out that I was taking up more space with this van than he wanted for his tent and gazebo and so on. So it took a few hours for the ice to melt. And eventually he came to in fact, I think it was his wife first who came to look at the van when she realized there was a toilet inside. And again, showed them round. And they had an adult son who they did take out a lot, camping and to festivals and so on, but they always changed him on the floor, did all his personal care on the floor in a tent. And again, at the end of the weekend, I asked him if he'd say a few words on camera. And he said, his words to me were, this vehicle, he said, is nothing short of life-changing. And I think that's what James and I have experienced so many times when people use us. They say, this actually does change lives, because it's far more than just a toilet and a bed on wheels. It actually provides 100% accessibility for people who otherwise are on permanent lockdown, not just on coronavirus lockdown, they're on permanent lockdown all year round. And we find that everywhere we go, and that really is so moving, whether it's a football match you attend or a festival, or you're in the car park of a beach or wherever you go, for somebody to come up to you and thank you for the ability to use a toilet, or to tell you that their life is different because there's an accessible toilet they can use, that's incredibly humbling.
Yeah, that sounds very familiar. It's kind of ridiculous that it's still that meaningful in 2020, but it's amazing that you guys have been able to come up with an answer and a solution for many more people. So, I mean, I think it was really great to hear the sort of founding story and how it came about from James, and then a couple of really powerful use cases and sort of testimonials of the difference that it makes. I mean, you both know I'm very mission driven. Everything I do is all around trying to have disabled people more included in society from all different sort of perspectives. But also I'm very interested in the kind of entrepreneurial and the funding and the sustainability side. So I'd imagine there's a fair to get started. There's obviously costs around getting the vehicles and adapting them. So how were you able to get started? Were you able to get funding when you first began?
Yeah, we've had. We're very fortunate. We've been able to fund the fleet that we've got through a mixture of grants and loans, and I mean, we do operate it. It is operated within the context of a CIO, which is a registered charity, but we do, within that context, we kind of trade as a social enterprise. So we charge event organizers a small fee to hire the vehicle, and that doesn't really cover the entire cost of providing the service, but it does cover the cost of paying for the driver attendant, for the fuel, for any overnight accommodation and sort of food and drinks and so on.
Yeah.
But yeah, we couldn't do what we do without significant amounts of grant funding. So we're kind of constantly on the fundraising trail, and at the moment we did get some funding from Postcode Innovation Trust to build 4 more vehicles, and we were kind of halfway through that program when the coronavirus hit. So we've kind of cancelled our order for 2 of those vehicles because we went from a position of not having enough vehicles to having a lot of vehicles sitting in the yard doing nothing. So it's been a massive hit for us.
Yeah, yeah. Obviously, with the COVID-19, it's we sort of touched on it before we went live, didn't we? That there's, everyone's at home, people are not rushing to gigs or festivals or all the other kind of football matches or the other kind of places that you were previously going to. And I suppose, hopefully as things go forward and we come out of lockdown and there's the precautions around social distancing, but there'll be a chance, an opportunity to start getting back to where you were. And obviously it's been a big disruption and inconvenience across the board with COVID-19. I mean, I imagine doing the fundraising is very hard, sort of year on year, to keep finding the pots of money that are coming in. And you mentioned that the model where you charge the events, I guess the balance there is if you charge more to cover all of the costs, then it may not be fitting in the budgets of the event organizers. Is that something that you had feedback on?
Yeah, totally. We were very deliberate about our pricing strategy. So we wanted to be able to create kind of low barrier to entry as possible.
Yeah.
We charge 390 quid for the day. And, some people will say, oh, that's quite a lot. But actually, when you look at the costs associated, it doesn't actually cover the cost. And if you talk to commercial toilet operators and you say, look, here's the Mobiloo thing, what would you be charging for it if you had one? And the answers are sort of 12 to 1,500 quid a day. So
right.
We don't are significantly lower than commercial rates. But the flip side of that has been the very, very rapid growth of the project and the huge, huge demand. So in 2016, which I mentioned being our kind of first full year, we went to 60 events with a single vehicle. This year, if it hadn't been COVID, we would have done almost 2,000.
Wow.
So, absolutely monumental growth in the space of 4 years. So levels of growth that even very successful tech companies would be pleased to see. So I mean, it's taken off massively, and in fact, demand certainly under normal circumstances, demand outstrips supply some of the time, especially sort of busy sort of July and August weekends. I mean, and I think assuming the world does return to something near normality and that our beneficiaries feel comfortable to go out to public events again, I would hope that it would continue to grow along similar lines for quite some time.
Yeah. I think so too. I mean, I was just thinking around like the benefit and the scale is massive. Like so many people that need this exact solution. And I even wondered, have you ever spoke with councils about centres and that kind of stuff?
Sorry, say again, Martin?
Yeah, just the idea of in a town centre where there's very often not that many suitable toilets, accessible toilets, whether it could become a solution within public spaces, just like high street town centres.
I think, and Kerry would probably might be able to say a bit more on this, but I mean, the desirable situation, I think, is to have a permanent facility in the town centre, which is always open.
You wouldn't need the van as such.
Where that's not possible, then of course Mobiloo can step in as a temporary solution. Having said that, people do say to me, "Oh yeah, but if there are more permanent facilities, then there won't be the demand for the Mobiloo." Well, on the one hand, I don't care. Like our mission is to solve the toileting problem and make it possible for those who need the facility to be able to get out and do things. So that happens as a result of there suddenly being, tens of thousands of changing places, toilets around the country. I'll be very happy. But on the other hand, actually, there's always going to be a demand for mobile facilities because there are always temporary events like pop-up events, like the sorts of things that Kerry mentioned. Kerry, is there anything else that you can?
I think what James has said. I mean, yes, we do a lot of town centre events, especially at busy times. So things like Christmas markets and parades and Pride and all that kind of thing, where the one toilet facility in the middle of a town centre just wouldn't be able to cope with the demand. So we do attend town centre events and are really busy at many of those. But like James said, I mean, it was actually through this conversation that he and I got to know each other, because he said, well, what you were campaigning for with permanent changing facilities, changing place facilities, is exactly the same as what we're campaigning for, but from a different angle. And yeah, we'd all love to see tens of thousands of changing places facilities, and that would do the job. But until such time, and even beyond such time, what Mobiloo is proving is that where you can put a facility, people will go, people will attend. And that's what we sometimes have to convince our organisers and event managers of, is that if they provide the facility, people will attend their events knowing that facility is there. They will not attend on the chance that there'll be a facility, but if there is a facility, they will come. And as a result of that, we are victims really of our own success, in that because we attend and people see us and use us, they tell other people that these facilities exist, and the demand becomes absolutely exponential. And as James said, well, it's not just summer months, during spring and summer months, and especially peak times like bonfire weekend, Christmas markets, Halloween weekends, Easter weekend, bank holidays and so on, May bank holidays, the demand is far greater than we could ever supply at the moment with the 10 or 12 vehicles that we've got on the road. And we don't want to be in a position where we're trying to choose to attend one event and not another event. We want to have enough vehicles and enough drivers countrywide to cover all bases.
Yeah. Were you going to say something, James?
I was just going to add in something really interesting, which is that we publicise all of our events on our website. That's mobiloo.org.uk/events. You won't see much there at the moment because we've kind of had a 99% drop off in bookings, which has been pretty catastrophic, obviously. But there are families who they base their entire annual activity plan around our calendar. So they look and say, well, where's Mobiloo going to be? That's what we're going to do that weekend. And they do that for their entire year of activities.
That's amazing. That's really cool. Yeah, congratulations. It's a phenomenal initiative, and it sounds like prior to COVID, of course, it was really flying. And yeah, I'm sure it's going to pick back up. I've got a couple of questions I'm going to ask you, but there's a couple of comments coming in from the audience. So Alison Beaver says, hello from Retford, Changing Places campaign. Mobiloo's are great, she says. And she says, what can we do to reach more people who don't know about these facilities in the two examples you've given, which were the two videos? Have you both got thoughts on how to reach more people?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of our users and our potential audience are through social media, through our Facebook and Twitter accounts, and through word of mouth. I mean, as James said, because we're so busy, or because we have been so busy when we were operational, we've actually not needed to do any advertising or go on TV or put posters around, because we literally have more work coming in than we can attend. What's interesting about the current period, and although it's awful, it's dreadful being in lockdown, it gives those people who don't have a disability a real feeling what it's like for those who do. And when they say, I've got to drive to town and I can't go into the toilet at Tesco's, or I can't use the facilities at my local town centre because they are shut because the attendant's furloughed or not at work, it gives people a real experience of what it's like not to have convenient public convenience. And so, that's what it's like for our 250,000 UK users and their families and carers and friends and so on. So yeah, hopefully, I'm quite hopeful that this period of lockdown will have been a way of reinforcing how important our facility is. And coming out of lockdown, what we need to do is no different to what we always do. We are not just a vehicle, but an attended vehicle. So in between every single user, we clean down our vehicle and the equipment that those people have used. So our space is not just big, but it's hygienic, it's clean, and that's something that a lot of our users comment on. And we're attending the event, whether that be for an hour and a half or whether it be a full day or a full weekend. We're there all the time to be able to make that facility usable. So what we would need to do after lockdown is no different to what we were doing before lockdown. It might be that the places that we do that are different, and the numbers of audience that we do that for are different. But actually, our reason for being here is going to be exactly the same. But Alison's right. Yeah, we do need to spread the word, and hopefully this conversation today will help with that.
Sure.
just to tell people that we're about. And although the vans are not on the road and bombing up and down the M5 and M6 at the moment, we've still got them ready to be hitting the road as soon as we're invited out.
Yeah, brilliant. We got someone commented that I think you might know who they are. Zach. Hi everyone, I'm campaigning.
No, I've never heard of that. We better give him a shout out because Zach is one of our trustees. Zach's my stepson, and he lives about a minute and a half up the road from where I am at the moment. He lives independently now with some staff within his house. But Zach's one of the trustees for Mobiloo, and importantly, as a trustee, he's also a Mobiloo user, so he understands firsthand what difference Mobiloo makes to his life. And I think this last 3 months has been the longest 3 months in Zach's life. I don't think he's ever not gone out of the house for such a long period of time. So yeah, we'll give Zach a shout out. Good to see you watching.
Hi there, Zach. And yeah, I feel that it's definitely been a challenging 3 months to say the least. But yeah, hopefully some brighter times are ahead. And yeah, I think Zach saying is changing places campaigner as well. And my point about sort of being mission driven earlier, right? For you guys, it is about having access to toilets in whatever way that is, right? It's just that fundamental need and the dignity to just be able to use the loo properly, no matter what your needs are, no matter where you are, right?
Absolutely, yeah. And it could be that disability is a very obvious physical disability that wheelchair users like yourself, Martin, display when they're out and about, or it could be, as my experience is at a lot of other events. For example, last year we covered all the World Cricket Championships, so I was very fortunate to visit some lovely venues last year covering the World Cricket matches, and there were many more elderly users on those occasions, some who didn't need a lot of the equipment that was in our vehicle, but perhaps needed a clean space because they were diabetic and needed to be hygienically give themselves an injection, or they had a colostomy bag, maybe they wanted to have a bit more privacy and emptying, or maybe they were people with poor vision and they didn't want to be being clumsy in a portaloo. They wanted to have some dignity, as you say, of using the facility. So we're here for people with all kinds of disabilities, visible or invisible, for whom we can make life more accessible for them.
Yeah, definitely. Lorna is saying we love to see a Mobiloo at events. Makes a whole difference to our life. Hello, Lorna. Haven't seen you for a while. Hope you're well. And Mandy, James and Kerry know me. I contacted a potential booker this morning about us. Their response was, "We have a disabled toilet." So
yeah, dear me. And my response to that is, if you're able-bodied, get in a wheelchair and go and try and use it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, totally agree.
When Zach and I started campaigning, we went, I won't name the museum, but we went to a museum, he and I, on a day out, and we needed to use a disabled toilet facility. And we asked where it was, and first of all, it was on the top floor of this museum, which I think was 4 stories high. So we went up to this toilet, and when we got to it, yes, it was brand new. The door opened the wrong way, and when Zach wheeled in his wheelchair, he won't mind me mentioning, we couldn't even close the door behind us, never mind attempt anything else. And it's so critical that people who design and install these facilities actually consult with, or better still, even try it themselves to see how much space. I say a wheelchair. Wheelchairs come in as many different sizes as cars do, but to try negotiating that space with a wheelchair, a disabled toilet is not necessarily accessible just by virtue of having a yellow handrail and a big mirror on the lower down and a red cord.
Yeah.
That's why we call our facilities accessible toilet facilities, not disabled facilities, because the important word is the access, not ticking a box to meet some kind of disabled criteria. And yeah, I echo what Mandy says, and we see that countrywide, in new and old buildings alike.
Yeah, and the disability rights movement has always talked about nothing about us without us. And the more I've got through my life, and I've got into marketing as well, is you ask people that are going to use a product or service what their needs are, and then you provide that. And it's just crazy that for so many decades, very few businesses or organizations actually said, right, like you say, you're in a wheelchair, but there's different types of wheelchairs, or you're not in a wheelchair, but you've got a colostomy bag, whatever the different needs are. But gone, how do we create toilets that are suitable? And it's just bonkers. It never happened. But again, it's testament to you that you've listened to what disabled people need. You've provided the solution, and it's a thriving, scaling,
As I said, the new vehicles that we're bringing on board now, I've not had the chance to see yet the newest one, which has just been finished. But we adapt it. We move things around. And if people say, well, we need to be able to turn the bed around, or it would be better if the shower was in that corner, or the sink needs to be at this height, or it'd be useful if you could provide this, then those are the kind of conversations we've had with our users on the basis of them trying us out in order to improve. We don't just say, well, sorry, that's the plan, use it or not.
Yeah. Go on, James.
Just going to follow on from what Kerry said. It's kind of funny that I put my hand up and then he almost said exactly what I was going to say. But I'll add one little bit to that, which is that also we have a kind of a separate parallel social enterprise. Everything we do is sort of based in kind of social enterprise, charity, community interest, company kind of context, so that it's all non-profit. There's no shareholders, nobody's getting rich out of this. We all earn the same amount of money. So I'm the CEO, I get paid the same daily rate as the driver attendant. So we kind of try and make it very, very fair. So the kind of the side operation, if you like, that builds the vehicles also is run by people who are driver attendants. So it's not like we're commissioning some distant company who doesn't know what a Mobiloo is to build these things for us. We've tried that before, but we've now set up our own operation, and the guys that are building the new fleet of Mobiloos are all driver attendants as well, so they have first-hand experience. Whenever I'm down there to the workshop to look at the progress, I'm often almost in tears, because the things they are thinking about, the tiny touches, and they will research and look for a product, a switch, or a rail, or a something, from a long way away. They'll find it on eBay. They'll kind of set up a mechanism for getting it into the country, just because they know that is exactly the right piece for this particular Mobiloo. So their attention to detail and their innovativeness is just staggering. So I'm really excited to launch the new Mobiloo when it's ready very shortly.
When can we expect it? Do you have a date, or is it just coming soon?
Well, I mean, the thing is, there isn't the demand for it, so we have slowed things down a bit on the build side, and also we've had problems sourcing materials through lockdown. So I don't know, maybe it might be sort of ready in 2-3 weeks, but then we have to wrap it as well. So in the next month or so, I would hope to see it out and about. And because one of the things, going back to Alison's question actually, which was very interesting. One of the reasons that we haven't been able to do so much of this kind of marketing activity is because we've been rushed off our feet just dealing with the existing demand. So, in terms of silver lining, COVID-19 has provided one, because we've been able to think about, marketing strategy. We've been able to do things like come on this broadcast today. We've actually been able to take a bit more time building the new vans. So one thing that would be really good to do, if we can get the funding to do it, would be to take the new vehicle around and kind of showcase it on maybe a little bit of a tour. So I hope hope I'm not speaking out of turn imagining that possibility, but it would be great if we could.
Well, yeah, and if you need a hand from a marketing agency by disabled people for disabled people, you know where I am, right?
and like many of our advocates, Martin, that we're so grateful for those people. Alison's Alison and her family, and many others. I can see her watching, Lorna and so on, who do superb work for us and just spreading the word. Because we know firsthand what difference it makes. I've just noticed, Martin, you won't know him, but there's a chap who's just it's just been commented that he's watching. It's Chico Morales. Chico is, we better give him a shout. Chico is the ringmaster and clown with, or one of them, with Circus Star. And Circus Star we've been partnered with for the last 2 years, James. I think it's 2 years now. We've been following them on tour, or 2 tours a year. Sadly, this year's tour has obviously been cancelled. providing a Mobiloo facility at all their accessible circus events. They put on circus performances all around the country for children and families who've got disabilities or additional needs, and we provide toilet supports for them. And the take-up on those events, and I've been fortunate to do many of them in the North and the Midlands, has been phenomenal. I mean, we're talking at any one circus event, we could be used 40 or 50 times in the case of a circus performance. So hello to Chico and all the Circus Star team. We're looking forward to getting back on the road with you, as I know you are.
Cool. I did catch that, but I've got a visitor at the door and the dog's going crazy now. So I have to wrap things up a little bit. But
no worries.
Where can people like follow you and keep in touch?
Well, we have we're on social media, as I said. We're on Facebook, Twitter. I'm just moving my laptop, James, so people can see the poster in the van. So we're at Mobiloo UK on Twitter and Facebook, and our website address is www.mobiloo.org.uk. Our email address info@mobiloo. And you can expect to receive a reply from Mandy, who spoke earlier, or Alex, or James, or any of us on the social media accounts. So yeah, drop us a message, give us a like, and any questions, then please feel free to ask, because we're more than willing to talk about what we do and why we do it, and so on.
And a big shout out, whilst we're on the social media thing, a shout out for Emma Muldoon, otherwise
known. Thank you, Emma, for all your hard work up north.
So Emma, we're very lucky to have Emma doing all of our social media, most of our social media work, and she's been brilliant. So it's a real community, you know, Martin. It's a real community, as you'll have seen, you know, on this call. You know, Kerry is the stepdad of a Mobiloo beneficiary. Zach himself is one of the trustees. You know, the contributions from those who have kind of connected into this call, you know, it feels very, very like a supportive community, and that's exactly how it works. And it's just the most amazing thing. It's a total privilege and an honor to be involved in supporting this project. And I don't say I run it because, you know, we have a very flat structure. Everybody kind of contributes equally. And, you know, if anybody ever calls me boss, I turn around and say to them, I don't think you need a boss. You know, you guys are amazing. And I consider the driver attendants to be the most important people in this project. So it feels like a big family. I hope that kind of has come across through the conversation today.
Yeah, it definitely has. It definitely has. All right, guys, I'm going to have to wrap up because the dog's going crazy. But thank you.
No worries.
It was great to have a tour around the loo as well. And yeah, I'm looking forward to trying one out once we get back out of shielding.
Absolutely.
All right, take care, guys.
Bye.
Thanks so much indeed.